welcome to the Kongversation. I'm Hyle Russell.
And I am Gibbon. Hello.
Hello, and we're continuing discussing Donkey Kong Bonanza. That's all this show is anymore. Discussing Donkey Kong Bonanza. But now, things are really... Well, they're slowing down on this episode, but things are really heating up otherwise because we are beginning to discuss what is arguably the beginning of Act 3 of the game. So, Donkey Kong and Pauline, they are regrouping after all of that drama at the junction with Void Kong and what have you. And now they're taking a breath. They're exploring deeper. They're starting to learn more about the underground world. This is the stage of the game that was only really seen in quick glimpses in the Donkey Kong Bonanza Direct. And indeed, I don't think any of this stuff was shown off pre-Bonanza Direct in the early screenshots or trailer. So, like, this is the part of the game where, yes, Nintendo showed some of this stuff before release, but they showed quite a bit less than the earlier layers. And we're starting to get into the phase of the game where we're like going to be getting into more spoiler heavy stuff. If you were only like observing the officially released stuff, we're going to start unveiling some things with this episode that wasn't really widely known before release. Now, we are still keeping this spoiler free beyond the end of Sublayer 800 when you leave this world. This world being the resort layer.
Mm-hmm. You know, I find it interesting that all of the layers are just like the blah layer and don't have like they don't do the Mario Odyssey thing where each of them has like an actual name on top of the like description kingdom title they have.
Yeah,
I thought that was an interesting choice.
It is like you do have the dual naming. You have the like sublayer whatever, and then you have the actual like descriptive name.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, that is true, I guess.
Within those worlds, you also have the more fun alliterative names of the different areas in each sublayer. So
that's true.
Yeah. Like, I'm actually pretty happy with how this game handles the naming. It keeps it simple in a broader sense, but it still gets into the more rare style, like, wordplay. And I like, this is a lot more fun than, oh god, I'm not speaking ill of Donkey Kong Country Returns at every opportunity, but this is better than just jungle, you know, beach.
Yes,
ruins.
That's true. As much of a DKC Returns defender that I am, that was a weak point.
I understand why they did that, because you were basically just treading over the same ground of the original Donkey Kong Country and then some. And Tropical Freeze just went all in on the, you know, alliteration and like fun names like Juicy Jungle. And we are getting juicy on this episode as well, though, because
we are.
Yeah, we're talking about the world with the giant fruit. Yeah, and you know, I was playing this initially. I got to this world when I started really being on the upswing of COVID recovery. And I got to this world, and, you know, this is like the game's first real breather since, honestly, Hilltop Layer, like the second full world of the game. This is a smaller, less intense, and a boss-free world. It's kind of a cooldown. It's supposed to be
it's very much a cooldown.
It's as relaxing to the player as it's supposed to be to the in-universe inhabitants. So that's something that's like right up my alley. I love the idea of just kind of chilling in a game world, and that's what Resort Layer provides. But I was playing this and I saw all the giant fruit, and I was thinking at the time, this might be a good episode for Gibbon to appear on. And you asked me then, did you think of me for this episode because of the giant fruit? And I said yes. and I wasn't realizing you were making a joke at the time. I was thinking because I associate giant fruit with Jungle Beat, and I associate you with Jungle Beat, and then I realized, oh no, I actually looked like quite the insulting bigot there. So I apologize.
No, it's fine. Yeah, no. Giant fruit is the name of the game.
It's the name of this resort layer, at least.
Yeah.
So we will be getting into the resort layer. By the way, I am now 110 hours into Donkey Kong Bonanza. I am currently at, vague spoilers, Sublayer 1300. So I am at a really interesting point in the game. And
you've nearly doubled my playtime in the game.
I was talking in our Discord, the DK Vine Inner Circle, which is, a high-end tier for our patrons, and I mentioned how, like, I spent 120 hours in Donkey Kong Country 2 back in the mid-90s, and I think it was Carla just couldn't fathom how that's possible, and I was like, well, you didn't just linger in levels for hours at a time? You didn't use Bramble Scramble as a screensaver or whatever?
I totally did, except it didn't work because that TV has burn-in on it now.
I'm amazed I avoided that on any of my parents' televisions or friends' televisions for that matter. But yeah, before YouTube ASMR videos were a thing, I've suffered from depression and anxiety my entire life, but when you're a kid, especially when you're the child of boomer parents, that's not recognized. And I was just always perpetually on edge as a kid. And so anything that would help mitigate that, anything that would help soothe my jangled nerves, I would naturally gravitate towards that. And so Donkey Kong Country 2, and especially the music of Donkey Kong Country 2, that really, really helped do the trick. And so, yeah, Sticker Bush Symphony, put that on for 12 hours. So, not all of that 120 hours is just dedicated to pure gameplay. It is also just loitering. And I've been doing quite a bit of loitering in Donkey Kong Bonanza as well, and just really luxuriating. I didn't spend as much time in resort layer as I thought I would. I was like, oh, I'm probably going to stay here for the next week. And I think it was just a couple of days before I moved on. But, I still cleared it out before I left. I still found everything that I could find. And I think got my fill. I got my fill of pears and oranges. And
Resort Lair was actually the first lair I didn't full clear before moving on because I was a little impatient to get back to the plot. But I got most of it. There were just I was shy a few fossils and a gem or two before I left. But yeah,
I know that a lot of people had trouble finding Cranky in this layer.
Really? I just stumbled across him by happenstance. I didn't think he was particularly well hidden or anything. There were some other layers where finding Cranky was the last thing I did in them.
I've seen a lot of comments, people said they couldn't find Cranky. March Rose in our live stream right now says she still hasn't found Cranky. So
wow.
We'll discuss all of that on this episode of the Kongversation. Clearly, I need a vacation. I need a vacation from this vacation. Let's get to it. All right. So, as I mentioned, we live stream these episodes for our $5 and up patrons. So if you want to support DK Vine, if you want to support independent Donkey Kong journalism that never stops, even if there's 11 years between games, then think about becoming a DK Vine patron at dkvine.com/Patreon or patreon.com/DKVine. We've got a great crowd in our live stream right now. We have Freezer, we have Chocolate Milk Drinker, we have the aforementioned Mark Rose, we have Giga Strike, we have Jalen CSZ, I am probably botching the pronunciation of that, but we have S Monaco 14 as well. Hello, everyone. Hello.
Yeah, nice crowd.
And another perk of being a DK Vine patron, you have access to the Patreon exclusive Kongversation Other Voices episodes. So some DK Vine staffers and friends did this earlier in the year, right after Donkey Kong Bonanza was announced. Jeff, Dustin, and Mitchell Wolf were all just like jumping at the chance to talk about this game. And they all decided they would sit around and record a podcast. Sans me, because they just had to like word vomit their enthusiasm or in some cases reservations about Bananza. And they did that. And Jeff came to me and was like, hey, we did this. Would you have any use for this? And I was like, I guess maybe I can do something with this. And I decided to package it as this special Patreon exclusive Kongversation episode, sans me. And people seem to enjoy it. And so they've done it again. They've done another Kongversation Other Voices episode that will be going up for our patrons in very, very shortly, where they actually get into end of game spoilers and overall thoughts on Donkey Kong Bonanza. So before I even have a chance to address it, they're going to get into it. That'll be available for our patrons very, very soon. So check that
Exciting
out.
stuff.
All right, Jim, are you ready to discuss Sublayer 800, the resort layer?
I am.
All right, so
quite the charming lair.
It is. And I know that this isn't really the sexiest discussion to have, because this is another layer that is very similar in size and scope to the Hilltop layer, the second world of the game, where you first meet the Fractones and you really just kind of get the hang of some stuff that maybe wouldn't have immediately been apparent in Lagoon Layer or before that Ingot Isle. Like Hilltop Layer was where you really started to get the hang of turf surfing and chunk jumping, and
yeah,
like you started to learn about some of the reoccurring puzzles and challenges that would be throughout the game, like the Fragmentone collection and other stuff, Seeker Tones and Grow Tones and stuff like that. But this resort layer, it's also the first purely Fractone founded sub-civilization in the underground world since Hilltop Layer, meaning there's no animal tribe that's the dominant tastemakers here. There's no elder running the show. This is just purely a little slice of heaven run by the Fractones, a little resort that is a getaway in the underground world. And, you know, you forget that you're underground, considering this is effectively a tropical beach and archipelago.
Yeah, it is. Looking off in the distance, you can see some of the like Banandian veins creeping up through the what appears to be sky, but I'm not so sure on the horizon line.
It's some combination of chemicals that simulates the sky. Yes.
Yeah. It's that liquid you can breathe in.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that it's like about the same size as the Hilltop layer, but unlike the Hilltop layer, it's there's a lot of water, but that's sort of like this layer also has a lot of verticality to it, which is kind of unique among a lot of the layers. So, and how they approach that verticality was kind of interesting as well.
Yeah.
Because this is also the layer where we're introduced to the what is it called? Floatium or whatever?
Floatium, Liftoff Ore.
Liftoff Ore, yeah. Which is this sort of rainbow iridescent ore that Honestly, I thought it was going to be bouncy the first time I saw it. I was ready to like hop on it and bounce off of it, and was kind of confused when I didn't. And it's they don't tell you what to do with it immediately, like some of the fractones say later. But when you arrive at the lair, you're sort of on a like a side island, and there's one of the new lair enemies, the trailfinoids, those little shark guys
Yeah.
in front of you, and you punch him, and he just leaves a rainbow behind him in some weird like censored doom bleeding rainbows sort of way.
It's like a
And I was like,
Bifrost. It's like the
yeah,
Rainbow
I
Bridge.
immediately thought of the Bifrost. Um, and so I was like, oh, okay, this is how we're going to get up to those higher areas. I can see we're going to have to like punch these in varying ways, but that seems a little annoying. Is this going to be an annoying layer? But then, like, I think I grabbed a chunk on accident while I was like doing something else, and he started floating up, and I was like, oh, I see, and got really excited about it because it just opened up so many possibilities.
Yeah, and as you said, like this layer, because the general conceit of Bonanza is you are digging your way to the planet core, it means you're always traveling down. And this
Yeah,
layer gets to play with things a little bit because it's just the one sublayer. And to get to the sinkhole, you have to go up first. And it means there is, yeah, a lot of scaling,
yeah,
floating,
I did see if you
flying.
could just punch through the column that the giant watermelon was sitting on, and no, they prevent you from doing that.
Apparently, there's ways. People, I know people have like sped through this and didn't even use Liftoff Ore. But yeah, I think I like the way the game does this because yes, you can rush through this. This is a pretty inconsequential world in the grand scheme of things, but I like that when this world starts, Pauline has some dialogue where she says, "The weather is perfect. How about we take it easy for a bit, DK?" So it's basically an invitation to you, the player, to just enjoy yourself. Yeah, like
Yeah.
you might want to just rush through and speed up the plot, but you could be a freak like me and spend several days here.
Yeah, because we just had the big confrontation with Void where we had to go back to prior layers and chase him down in those, and just kind of run around all over the place,
Hmm.
and do some, like, even within the junction itself. Before we got to that, we had to do some backtracking, and so you get here, and it's just, I don't want to say filler, because it's not filler. It's there, it's very much there for a purpose, but it is very much a breather.
A breather.
Resort is very much like, yeah,
Yeah.
just take a little time off from the main thrust of the plot. Void is still like a presence. You can still see the like posters and stuff he slapped up on the walls, and he is stated to be the one who left the trailfinoids around.
Yes.
Um, but they're not a big, like, they're enemies. Yeah, they hurt you if you like aren't paying attention and they run into you, but like, not that big of a deal, honestly.
Yeah, in the grand scheme of the enemies of this game, they are probably the least obtrusive if you just want to loiter. And the fact that they create platforms when you punch them really does allow some inventive use of like the environment where you can like create these rainbow bridges that, by the way, they don't go away. They don't degenerate.
Yeah, but the trailfinoids respawn, so like
Yes.
if get them up there, you can lure them up the bridges and make more bridges off of the bridges.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
So
pretty
like
fun.
yeah, it would be interesting to try this world without actually grabbing hold of a chunk of liftoff ore, which, when you grab it with Donkey Kong, you rise up in the air and it like dissipates slowly, as terrain would if you were turf surfing or whatever, just gradually shrinks until like it goes away. And so then Donkey Kong falls from that. So you've got to get him at an angle where if you're trying to scale, you've got to find a higher landing point than you started at. But it would be interesting to see if you could cheese it and just create these rainbow bridges continually going up and up and up and up without actually using Liftoff Ore in its intended manner.
Yeah. I was playing around a lot in the lair this morning as I was taking some notes to get ready for this, and I ended up spending about 5 hours just dicking around in the lair, playing with bridges and Liftoff Ore, and just running around and seeing things.
Yeah.
Observing all the stuff beneath the water. There's a lot of interesting stuff beneath the water. In earlier layers, it doesn't come up a lot. Like there's a little bit of it in like Sublayer 10 and a bit in some of the other sublayers along the way, but this is really the first layer that's just full of water, like a lot of water. And like the sort of like, oh, DK swims on the surface and he's not diving in this game, so don't worry about it. And you can like jump and do the down punch into the water to get down there a little bit, and then you can like clap underwater to grab stuff that's out of reach if you're just swimming on the surface. I'm like, okay, that's an interesting way to go about that. But this is the first layer where I was like, now I want to dive. I want to go down there. I want to see.
Yeah, you've got, I really liked, there's lots of coral and...
Yeah, especially because this is very evocative of, it brought to mind two things from past games. The most recent one would be a kingdom in Odyssey that I don't know if you've actually gotten to yet. Where'd you...
I stopped at New Donk.
Okay, you haven't gotten there yet, but that kingdom is sort of a throwback in vibes to stuff from Mario Sunshine in turn. And this resort lair reminded me a lot of stuff in like Noki Bay and Gelato Beach. Gelato Beach having sort of like the beach huts and the palm trees and the giant fruits. And Noki Bay having these sort of like submerged ruins that you need to raise, and also just a lot of structures and floating stuff around. So it brought that to mind in particular. I actually booted up a video of Noki Bay earlier and found that it too was full of hexagonal platforms. Probably just because of, rendering geometry on less powerful hardware. But it was amusing to see the happenstantial coincidences there.
Yeah. It reminded me, because I am so Donkey Kong brained, it actually reminded me of the like beachy areas of Donkey Kong Adventure in Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Sunshine's very DKU coded anyway. Like, I think they've said in interviews that they were very inspired by Banjo-Kazooie when making that game. So
yeah, what I like, so like I immediately started looking around because like I was even saying somewhere, it might have been on another podcast appearance before I actually got to this world. Like Bananza isn't the Donkey Kong game I would have asked for, because my conception of what I wanted out of a 3D Donkey Kong game was, a Donkey Kong game in like jungles and tropical environments, and, a game where you're effectively going deep down, the Earth's crust. If you just pitched that to me out of context, I would have been like, what? But
yeah,
it's funny how this feels like the most traditional Donkey Kong like world or level, like to this point, where like your mines or whatever, sure, but and Lagoon Layer a little bit, but this really does feel like the familiar trappings of Donkey Kong and even the broader DKU Rare, just
and everything's made of bananas. Floating
Yeah, well,
platforms, bananas. The grass, bananas. The trees, believe it or not, bananas.
if you look on the horizon, the clouds will be banana shaped. You look up at the sun in this
It's a
layer, and
banana slice.
yeah, it's like a bananium chip just glowing, and you're just like, oh
Uh-huh.
wow. And at this stage in the game, when I was still trying to theorize like where the sun's coming from, I was like, okay, that's evidence that it's like the suns are powered by bananium. Write that down. Jot that down for later.
Write that down. Write that down.
Just trying to apply my own headcanon and logic to this game
Mm-hmm.
before the game lays out. You don't know what it's going to
Mm-hmm.
get into, and it's like, are they ever going to explain what these suns are? Like, what's happening here? It's probably
Mm-hmm.
bananium powered. We'll just leave it at that for now, and I can sleep at night.
Oh yeah. No, just this layer, like, while I did spend a bit less time in here than prior layers, just because it's not as big and not as much going on. Um, I did like start constructing like a Pepe Sylvia board of how things connect.
Mm.
Because my brain immediately went to giant fruit instances in past Donkey Kong games. So we've got Jungle Beat,
Hmm.
obviously, is the most obvious callback. There's a giant fruit at the end of every single level in the game. And these giant fruits are powered by the divine energy of the great spiritual tree that the helper monkeys worship or whatever,
The
which
sacred
is of
tree,
course,
yeah.
as we all know, powered by the power of bananas, which this game finally sheds some light on. Um, so that was the most obvious connection. But then there's more. Like in Jungle Climber, one of the levels, level 3-2 on Ghost Island World, that you access via a warp hole made from Xenonab alien technology powered by giant crystal bananas. Um, is a it's not in that little archipelago that the game takes place in. Those warps specifically take you somewhere else,
Mm.
and it's a area full of giant fruits and vegetables like corn and tomatoes and stuff, but also giant watermelons. And again, the power of the crystal bananas is at play there, and it kind of, when I was making notes about that, it was like, oh hey, I wonder if retroactively that's our first glimpse of Banandium gems,
You know,
because that's just what those are.
as somebody who has not finished with the game yet and is, like, I'm not ready to weigh in on any thoughts on the grand unifying theories behind all the different, like, banana sorts and, like, the
Mm,
bananium roots, vis-a-vis the crystal bananas, vis-a-vis the golden banana. Like, how's it all connected? Banana birds, banana fairies, banana sprites, like,
yeah, yeah.
banana
But
aliens.
yeah, obviously there's also like giant fruit levels in Returns and Tropical Freeze as well. Returns Golden Temple,
Hmm.
the
Yeah,
last level in the game,
right.
regardless of what version you're playing, is full of giant floating bananas and fruits in the sky, amongst temples of gold and some sort of you know, chimpanzee clouds, lost civilization ruins somehow up in the sky. And then, of course, as we mentioned before, Juicy Jungle in Tropical Freeze, which is a surface level area full of giant fruits that get processed to make icy pops.
Yeah. And jellies and what have you.
Yeah, yeah.
And if the concept art is to be believed, run by pigs. So hey,
Run by pigs.
so
And I know, like, when the giant fruits and some of these other fantastical elements first showed up in Jungle Beat, there's a lot of pushback from fans, like, this is weird. What is this doing in our Donkey Kong game? But, like, we're like 5 games in now with this sort of stuff, and it just kind of feels like, oh yeah, that's just a Donkey Kong thing at this point.
yeah, like
So yeah.
I think I think with Bonanza too, it like there's enough baked in justification for even things that feel weird on the surface, like well, that would
Yeah.
feel weird on the surface, and then you're in this
Yeah.
underground world, and things start working differently. Like here, we've got like out and out floating islands in the sky, and like that would normally
Yeah.
be like, oh, tisk tisk. Even though we do have floating islands, like you mentioned, chimpanzee clouds. We've got the whole chimpanzee clouds, fungi forest, secret seclusion kind of nexus point off Donkey Kong Island.
One of the running things in Bonanza that I kept noticing as I got further and further into it was like, this is just kind of unifying slash explaining like everything in Donkey Kong games, period. It's I've heard the game described as like fever dream fanfic because it just like actually sits down and explains things the way a dedicated hardcore fan would in like a fanfic. And it's like, oh, we can now explain floating platforms and these giant crystal bananas and X, Y, and Z because of things found in Bonanza that offer an explanation for those sorts of things. And maybe it doesn't explicitly textually say, and this is the reason the chimpanzee clouds can, support the weight of the golden temples that are built on top of them. But you see a similar sort of thing here in this game and go, oh, okay, this makes sense now. Sort of stuff.
Yeah, like even aside from like the giant fruit and the floating islands in Resort Layer, I really just
Mm-hmm.
appreciate that it is tranquil. Because
Oh
so much of the
yeah.
Donkey Kong series for me, and I already mentioned how much I would just loiter and linger in levels on the Super Nintendo trilogy, and put it on the background if I have to like do chores and clean my room. Just load up Bramble Scramble or even Jungle Hijinks in the original and just, like hang out and put
Mm-hmm.
it, have it be ambient background noise. And I
Oh,
appreciate,
for sure.
I appreciate the Resort Layer allows you, the player, that luxury here finally after all the back and forth between the Divide, Freezer Layer, the Divide again, Forest Layer, the Junction, and then chasing Void Kong back and forth across the different layers. This allows you to have a little tropical vacation.
Yeah, and not just allows, but it like in game you're encouraged to have this little vacation.
This does a lot of lifting towards, I think, developing their relationship even more, which I'll get into and explain in a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
I want to talk a little bit too about like some of the various grounded locales here,
Oh yeah, yeah.
Resort Layer. So like you've got the main tropical retreat in the center, and that's where all the various shops are. That's where most of the fractones are. But that's basically like, oh, this is where like characters would go if they were actually vacationing here. They would be hanging out on the
Mm-hmm.
tropical retreats, and you got beach chairs set up, and you can sit in
Mm-hmm.
them and restore your health. And
I like how it's laid out like a bit of a cabana.
mhm, yeah, and then around the tropical retreat, like off in the distance, you have what's called the Fruit Bowl Archipelago, uh, which is kind of almost a
That's
rhyme, and
such a DK Vide name. Like,
yeah, we're the ones who always talk about archipelagos. I mean, it's just I love the word archipelago. Just
oh yeah, fun word to say.
feels so good on the tongue when you say it. I like that. You've got those like sunken ruins that you can rise with the little like punching bag.
Oh yeah. I spent I spent so much time swimming around there. Like there's a similar area in Super Mario Sunshine where in Gelato Beach, where you have to go down into the water and swim around the little ruins and coral to collect some red coins, and it very much reminded me of that area. And I kept trying to, even after figuring out what I was supposed to do and raising it up and getting that Bananza gem, I just like I there's so much little detail in this layer of like, look at all that stuff down in the water that you is not accessible to you, and they really didn't need to put that much effort into building out these little ecosystems and environments, because there's like fish swimming around and creatures and different types of coral and plants and whatnot. It just I just spent so much time just vibing.
Yeah, there's that subterranean area with the fractones where they hide
Mm-hmm.
Bananza gems and fossils, and
That was fun. I liked, because if you don't start correct, there's a lot of stuff in this game where it's like you're digging through the environment and you come across like a cave or some area you didn't know was like hidden behind that wall or whatever, and you're like, oh, there's a gem back here, let's collect the gem. And then in the process of collecting the gem, there's like some signposting to be like, oh, there's the exit / entrance over there. And that's kind of how in a like non you can just dig through the world way I was supposed to get in here. That little underground area with all the fractones lined up in sort of grid pattern amongst that sort of maze, the maze without walls, is sort of an example of like, yeah, you can just get into here, however, but if you don't start in the right place, they're going to lead you to the wrong conclusion.
yeah, so like the fractones are guiding you to a Bananza gem. Actually, and I think there's another one hidden along the way, but
Oh, yeah.
they shift into arrows, like bodily morph into arrows as you're going. So it's like a maze, but you have to follow the fractones and use some deductive reasoning, like, oh, do I need to dig here? Do I need to go? Are they saying to go over there this much, or do I need to walk a little bit further? Like a lot of this game, it really does do a lot of like blending of play styles and like, oh, here, you're going to have to dig, and here you're going to have to do a little bit of platforming, but then there might be a way you can cheese this and, just stumble upon it without doing it the intended way, and that's part of the fun as well.
Yeah.
But, kind of almost off script here, because this particular challenge course, it feels so like not part of the greater ecosystem of this world. But of course we have to talk about it here. It is the third 2D challenge course that you will stumble upon.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready for this. It hadn't been that long since we had the second one, which was Bramble Country, the homage to the Bramble stages of Donkey Kong Country 2. And all of a sudden, here's the third one, and it's Minecart Country. So this one is an out-and-out tribute to basically Minecart Madness, the original Minecart level of Donkey Kong Country and the series as a whole. There are a lot of design nods to that. I mean, it's not a one-to-one recreation, but it's close.
Very much follows the spirit of it. Did you find the shortcut?
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's obvious. If you know the shortcut in the original, yeah. But of course, I was thinking, well, I bet there's a shortcut there. But I don't want to do the shortcut. I'll come back and see if the shortcut works later.
I couldn't help myself. I did it right off the bat and was like, holy shit, that worked.
For Nostalgic Country, the first one, which was kind of a jungle hijinks homage, it felt right because the things the experienced Donkey Kong Country player would say, I wonder if that works, and then it rewards you because, yes, it does work. And then Bramble Country, I felt, wasn't as good because of like the inherent limitations in recreating this formula within Bananza. You can't actually recreate it as well. Those types of stages.
Yeah.
Like getting the Bananza gems requires a little bit of like you have to like just stop and like pound on them, and it kind of takes you out of the experience. But this one felt exactly right as well. This one was right up there with Nostalgia Country for me.
We were, I can't remember if you were part of that conversation actually. We were talking with some folks about if like handheld or smaller scope side games still existed for things in current year, what that would look like for Bonanza. And I brought up doing maybe like a 2D, like Terraria type thing, and I think just a game in the style of these throwback country levels, where you still have like the Bonanza, like digging and throwing and stuff mechanics, but they're more like traditionally laid out. Donkey Kong Country levels like this could be really fun. um, Especially if they're all made with this amount of care and love to them.
One thing I really, really appreciated, though, about Minecart Country was the fact that they, to recreate the crashes,
Oh yeah.
to recreate them, they stuffed crocoids in the minecarts, and like they don't fit. They're just like they look so awkward, but they're there. They're there to serve the same purpose. They're there to make that deliberate callback to the Crash Kremlings, and I love to see it. Like I was cracking up every time I encountered one, especially the one covered in brambles or thorns.
Yeah.
I thought that was great.
Just a great level.
And I was like, it doesn't really fit the tropical beach, but again, like, there weren't many tropical beaches in the original trilogy, and I don't think they wanted to have throwbacks to the retro era games here. It's too recent in the grand scheme of things, and, like...
Not that there aren't throwbacks to the retro games in the game, but yeah.
No, but I mean this deliberate 2D challenge course homage. That would probably feel clunkier because the retro games are more recent and readily available on the Switch. One of them came out earlier this year, which seems like eons ago at this point.
Yeah, remember this thing from 4 months ago?
As cool as it would have been to see, like, maybe a, like, silhouette style nostalgia, like, retro beach or whatever, I'd be like, yeah, but that would be weird because we just got Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. So I can see why they want to do minecarts, especially given how prevalent that is right now in the subculture that is Donkey Kong fandom with the theme park. So
yeah,
probably the right call, and they slotted it in here is just a little treat.
Yeah. Yeah, just a lovely little thing.
Nostalgia Country was my favorite of the three thus far, but I think Minecart Country is up there. I really, really appreciated just how faithful it felt and just like how they recreated the mine aesthetic using Bonanza's assets.
Oh, 100%. It's great. As you say, doesn't really mesh with the rest of the resort layer, but very... very fun little thing.
Moving outside of that, getting back to the actual resort, there's no real good way to bring that up. As I often like to do with these episodes, I like to bring up the ambient wildlife.
Oh, yes, for sure.
And in this case, there's so many. Usually there's one, maybe two different animal types that you'll see.
Yeah, you didn't even include all of them in your show notes.
Oh, okay. Well, we can get into it. The ones I documented via like stop, take a screenshot. So we had the birds returning from the divide and the freezer layer.
The little songbird types. Yep.
All the wildlife in this game, aside from the rats in Ingot Isle, they have crystalline growths on them. So you've got the returning birds. You've also got crabs returning. Seagulls! Yeah, you can see flocks of seagulls flying in the sky. And of course, I had to go into photo mode and zoom in to see how detailed they were. And sure enough, the seagulls have green crystals on the tips of their wings. And crystal butterflies! So they're butterflies, and on the edges of their wings, they have the crystals, but they're also the like blue and magenta Bananza color coded
Mm-hmm.
like wings, and like they come in two different color configurations, like with the magenta in the middle and blue on the outside, and then blue in the middle and magenta on the outside. So like I absolutely adore those. What were the ones I didn't document?
There's a variety of different types of fish swimming around the coral areas, which I thought was really neat, and they react to you if you try to pound below the surface of the water. um, so yeah, they're swimming around there. They congregate in I don't know if it's specific areas, but like if you swim over to where they are, they'll kind of like be a bit cautious of you, and if you try to dive down by punching into the water, they kind of scatter for a little bit before regrouping. Nice little ambient wildlife reactions and stuff.
Especially because there weren't fish in Lagoon Layer, despite it being made up of fisher folk.
Yeah, but they weren't fishing for fish.
No, they were fishing for forks and spoons. Yes, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun to see finally that there are fish in the underground world. Again, because like water hasn't, as you said, water hasn't really played a big part. Even in Lagoon Layer, there was a drought for most of it, and you had to restore the water, but like there wasn't much of an opportunity to portray fish in the forest layer. It's poisoned, so
Like yeah, between the poison in the forest layer and like the lava or frozen stuff, like the cold water in the freezer layer, and just like this is the first like actual like ocean stuff. So
ocean, like ocean in quotes because or
yeah.
scare quotes because
hmm
they're not. It's not really the ocean, but it's
Yeah.
close enough.
Speaking of flora and fauna.
Fossils. So once again, because this is a smaller world like Hilltop Layer, we get a repeat fossil this time around. So after the High of Forest layer, and you're like, oh my god, all three fossils were Donkey Kong series related. Ooh, like what references are they going to hit me with next? Well, sorry, it's a bit of a come down here because you get an alternate color of the leaf fossil.
Yeah, I really like this game. I do have some problems with it, and they're nitpicky in the grand scheme of things. And I do think these repeat fossils are just sort of like a come on, you could have just made it something else, guys. Like what are you doing? I don't know what I would have put here. I don't know. This might have been a good place to put like I don't know, squidges or something.
But
um
I do appreciate, at the very least, and I think Leaf is the least exciting of the fossils, honestly. Trilobite, you're still learning something. With the Leaf, you're like,
mhm.
yeah, leaves existed. Cool. But I do appreciate they write a second description for all of these alternate colored fossils.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair enough.
But here we get a new description for leaf where it says a single leaf can tell us a lot about its environment long ago. However, they often decay too quickly to become fossils, which is true.
Mm.
And it's, you learn something about real life fossils. And this is kind of the last, well, this, I mean, I shouldn't say, because I don't know this, but the game really begins to indulge in Donkey Kong nerdery with the fossils from the forest layer onward.
It's interesting how you start up in like Lagoon Lair and you're getting like, oh, this is a whale and this is this type of animal and this is this type of animal. But as you start getting into these lower levels, it's like, and here's all these Donkey Kong things.
Oh, this naughty beaver,
Yeah.
which I love. And honestly,
hmm
like, that's what we signed up for when we first saw the naughty fossil in the original trailer. But I did like learning about real fossils, and I liked that it
hmm
kind of slow walks you towards, I think I called it Donkey Kong headassery. We're not going to scare off the normies right away.
hmm
We're going to slowly indoctrinate them in the ways of Donkey Kong. It's like, oh, here's this preserved bug. This will put a zing in your collection. Before you know it, it's just, here's a naughty, here's a spider with tennis shoes.
I just think you could have done something innocuous here, maybe like a Clambo shell or something, where like if you didn't already know, you'd be like, oh, it's a seashell. You know what I mean?
I do like the color scheme, the alternate color schemes they give these. Like, again, Jeff accused me of effectively just simping for this game and coming up with like hand wavy justifications for even the things that don't work well, and I will cop to that.
Which, to be fair, we are doing. Like...
I agree with you on principle. It would have been nice if they came up with like a couple new fossils for these smaller layers. I agree. I agree with you, but I also don't think it's that much of a problem.
Yeah. Like I said, it's like, yeah, it's a complaint, but it's a nitpick in the grand scheme of things. Like my final review for the game is like 10 out of 10, but it could have been 11 out of 10. So like,
nothing is a flawless masterpiece. Even if things held up as towering achievements of the creative arts still have flaws. We just forgive those flaws because they don't really matter, and in some ways make the work even more interesting. Again, that's just me simping for something I just want to be a complete whore for. Okay, one actual criticism, though, of these small layers, and now that we can compare Hilltop Layer with Resort Layer, I will say I wish that the style shops, where you actually trade in the fossils, had a little bit more to offer than just 4 different fur dye types.
That's super fair. I would have like, I don't know, I wanted to see DK in some beach shorts or something. Or maybe in the spirit of reusing fossils, maybe they like do another alt color of the Lagoon Lair stuff for DK and Pauline for this layer or something. Like, I don't know, just give us something a little more substantial than 4 alt colors. Not that they're bad alt colors, but
I never use the fur dye because for me it just makes Donkey Kong look weird. Like it's.
I didn't use any of the fur dye until I got to one particular one, and I haven't taken that one off since. So,
Like, you would think I would like just go for the banana gradient fur that's available in this. But then you look at how it makes Donkey Kong appear, and you're like, oh no, no. And I don't know, like it would have been fun to have like give Donkey Kong's skin a sunburn. That's not really something you should be able to buy though, so I understand. I don't know, just like something that's a different cosmetic tweak other than fur dye and changing his tie and change. Like, it would have been nice to have a little bit more costuming variety or accessories that you could add that maybe don't even add a gameplay benefit, but are just there as like a neat little stylistic tweak.
Giving me like an umbrella hat and some sunglasses would have gone a long way. You know.
But on the subject of fossils, on the subject of clothing, we are introduced here to a new fractone. So in the Donkey Kong Bonanza Direct, they announced if you got the Donkey Kong and Pauline amiibo, you could unlock Pauline's diva dress early. And I was like, okay, cool. So I didn't try to scan the amiibo until I got to Hilltop Layer. And I was at a getaway. I was at the first getaway, and I was like, all right, you know what? Now I'm going to try to scan this amiibo. It's like downtime for the characters. Let's see if this works. And I got the massive Kong letter tiles, the golden tiles that you get for scanning an amiibo, which you can always do from the, like you press pause and there's the option to scan the amiibo. Yeah. But, nothing about the dress popped up.
Yeah, same thing happened to me. My amiibo shipment was actually delayed because I ordered 2 of them. One for me and one for my brother. And I didn't actually get my amiibo until I was already in Forest Lair, and I scanned it right away, and the Kong letters showed up, and there was no mention of the dress, and I was like, did it just not say anything? And it's now like in my closet? Okay, no, it's not there. What's going on? Is it not working? What's going on?
I was like, is my amiibo defective? Is my game defective? Is there some crossed wires in Nintendo? What's happening? And I was like, well, no, like that, it wouldn't work like that. Like it's not like the dress is coded in the amiibo itself. What? So
Mhm.
anyway, long story short, you don't get the dress until you talk or meet Collectone, which is what was the Super Mario Odyssey amiibo character? Was it like Captain Amiibo or what was it?
Uh, Something like that, yeah.
And I was like, it's weird that Bananza doesn't have an equivalent to that. That doesn't show up in each layer. Be like, scan an amiibo. And I don't know why that was the voice I picked for Amiibotron. Here we finally meet Collectone. Collectone is a fractone in the general shape of the Donkey Kong and Pauline amiibo. It's actually two fractones, which is a bit nebulous considering the fractones already referred to themselves in the plural and never the singular.
Mm, I assume Collectone is the DK one. I'm curious as to what the Pauline one's name is.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree that they're two separate characters, and we see two separate dialogue lines when they talk. So, like, Collectone, the big, burly, buff, blue one that's emulating the shape of Donkey Kong, says, "We love curious things." And then the small red one on top says, "Love 'em." So,
Hmm.
like, and says it in a sing-songy way, too. So, yeah, I would like to know the name of Collectone's buddy, but if I didn't know this was actually the shape of the Donkey Kong and Pauline amiibo, I would think these are like referencing Banjo-Kazooie because the little one is red, and it just makes me think Kazooie.
I'm going to call her Singtone until we get an official name for her, because she sings songs all of her dialogue.
Collectone says, "We especially love amiibo figures." And then Singtone says, "Fossils are nice too." And I was like, that's a weird line that there's later context for that. But
Mm.
Collectone then's like, "Do you happen to have any amiibo figures?" And so you say, "Here's an amiibo." And then you scan. If you scan a Donkey Kong series amiibo, you get the big golden Kong letter tiles, which you can then use to whatever purpose you want. And you can scan this at any point. You don't have to talk to Collectone to scan an amiibo. But if you scan this Donkey Kong and Pauline amiibo figure specifically, this is the point the dress unlocks, and you get the banner popping up that says, "You got a new outfit for Pauline." And I was like, thank God. Nagging thing at the back of my brain is like, oh, I don't have the dress. I won't be able to 100% complete this game if I don't get the dress. This is the outfit that Pauline would wear then for the foreseeable future. It wouldn't be until I would get a later outfit that I'd be like, oh, I've got to change Pauline to that. But for like when I first got here, she was dressed in the Forest Layer, like Jackie Onassis hotel. I like that one, but then I was like, no, I've got to change her into the amiibo dress considering how long I was quietly fretting about it. So that was nice. But I really like Collectone and Collectone's little buddy. I was like, oh, that's a fun character. I like that Bananza has its own answer for Odyssey's equivalent. Uncle Amiibo, the Noipoi says in our live stream. Thank you so much.
Mm.
Have you used the Kong letter tiles at all?
A couple times. Like, I don't know. Like, they're definitely good for surf turfing and uh, turf turfing. I don't turf surfing and surf surfing. Tongue surf surfing. Um, I can't remember. Can you actually break them for gold?
I'm not sure like they will explode upon impact, but I'm not sure if it registers like in your Smash stats. I'm not sure if it actually like.
But does it award you Banandium?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it brings up some interesting implications for the Golden Kong letters in other games, is what it does.
I think these are almost like recreations of those because those are like tied into other aspects of the series. And I think Retro already explained what those might be, where these almost seem to be created with Banandium derived gold in tribute by Collectone.
Either way, I thought it was a neat little way to include the Kong letters in this game, considering this game seems to be going out of its way to incorporate elements from past Donkey Kong stuff into it.
What I also found interesting is how it throws back to the Rare era style Kong letters.
Yeah.
It's very like consciously going back to an earlier era of the series at a time when all this stuff is cemented at Super Nintendo World. I don't mind. Like, I think there's room for both visual designs. I just like, it's like, oh, it's cool to see because I do like the big golden Kong letters a little bit more than the smaller red and yellow Kong letters.
Speaking of throwbacks to Rare stuff.
Yeah, so in my show notes, and of course, like this is one I like leapt on when I was playing the game, but
yeah, I had my own notes about this as well before the show notes document got updated this morning.
So Quiztone, the quizmaster Fractone, who asked you various trivia questions, again, harkening back to Odyssey, like the Sphinx, but like various DK series quizmasters like Swanky or Grunty even, but asked you 3 questions about recent areas or the layer you are in. In Quiztone's 3 questions, Quiztone asked, what won't you find on this layer? And it's oranges, strawberries, coconuts. Those are your 3 choices. Now, there's giant oranges, there's giant strawberries, there's also giant pears, there's a giant watermelon in the middle, but the answer is coconuts. And I was like, even thinking, it's like, you know, there might be like ambient coconuts just lying about that I haven't seen. No, wait, that's Sea of Thieves. Okay. And Quiztone says, do you miss those sparkling coconuts from days gone by? At least the oranges don't explode this time. Ha ha. And it took me like half a second. And I was like, wait, what? Sparkling coconut? Is he referencing?
So the first thing that pops into my head is, how does he know? How does he know? Was he there? What's going on?
Quiztone seems to know about the events of Donkey Kong 64. And I was like, talking with other Fractones, they don't know who Donkey Kong is. Or at least didn't know who Donkey Kong was until he came into the underground world. However, then I was thinking about it. I was like, how would Quiztone know this? Well, Quiztone is obviously a very observant fellow. They're obviously like up on minutia. And then I was thinking, you know, Cranky Kong is also exploring the underground worlds, you know, at the very same time, kind of a parallel quest Cranky Kong is on. So I'm sure Cranky Kong has met Quiztone.
See, okay, so here's the thing. Like, I don't know if you actually saw this or not. People, one of our community members noticed that there is a, I don't know, chunk of ruins in the Lost World in Donkey Kong Country 3 that looks suspiciously like a Fractone.
It's not just in Kremato, it's also in just the jungle.
Oh, yeah. And it's like, so I've been racking my brains trying to think of if there's anything in Donkey Kong 64 that we could point at to go, it was you! You were Quiztone all along! Which made me wonder, like, because when you pick up a Banandium gem in this game, and you revisit a level, the spots where they were are marked by like replacement Banandium gems that don't award you a new Banandium gem, but they're made of like clear crystal instead of like the Banandium crystal. And I'm like, is that the same sort of like clear crystal as the crystal coconuts? Are crystal coconuts just made of like depleted Banandium gem substance? We know there's refineries where they take all like the essence out of them because that's what was going up on in the canyon layer. So like maybe is this a white chocolate dark chocolate thing? Is like the coconut, the crystal coconut, the substance that's left over after all of the essence has been refined out of the Banandium, and they just press it into coconut shape? Like what's going on here? I don't know. This is how my brain works. So
Just Occam's razor it, and like, what's the simplest explanation? And it's like,
I mean, yeah, the simplest explanation is Cranky's right over there. Maybe they talked, but like,
I'm not willing to dismiss any fan theories right now because I'm not at a place where I can effectively do that because I haven't finished the game yet.
Oh yeah, Just Andre in chat brings up the possibility of Quizstone actually being Log in disguise.
I do think that Quiztone, out of all the Fractones that we've seen thus far, at least seems to be the most knowledgeable as far as the Kongs themselves go.
Yeah.
That, again, like, Quiztone was hanging out by Cranky in Hilltop Layer, so I'm sure they've had words. Are Fractones hiding in plain sight in Donkey Kong Country 3? Well, I'm not ready to dismiss anything. I think, like, I knew exactly. I think it was, like, linked to me on Blue Sky, and I took a quick perusal. I haven't watched it, of course, because I'm on a blackout for all things Bananza, but I was like, it's a cute visual similarity, and I wouldn't put it past that being an actual retcon at some point.
There's so many things in this game that it's like, oh, the crystal bananas from Jungle Climber are obviously Banandium gems, sort of stuff that there's so many things in Bananza that I think one could reasonably point to something in a past game and go, oh, this is this thing that Bananza has now like recontextualized for us. So I think pointing to that thing in DKC3 and going, oh man, is that a Fractone? Is not like completely unreasonable, because to me Bananza just provides so much like backwards explanation / connection for stuff in the series that I'm super willing to go, fuck yeah, that was a Fractone, and yeah, crystal bananas are related to Banandium gems, and of course X, Y, and Z. Like, there's so much there for me.
Well, speaking of Cranky Kong, he is hiding in a little cave around the other side of the main island. You have to kind of swim around, and you find this little entrance, this little grotto, if you will. And there's Cranky and Rambi just hanging out together. And again, like, I said this when I did the episode with Malik where we discussed the canyon layer, but I thought like Rambi was going to be this thing that would tip you off to where Cranky was hiding.
He is in some layers, yeah.
Other times they're just like, whatever. Which, yeah, it would be hard sometimes to be able to tip you off with Rambi because you'd have to put him in some weird spots. But in this case, they are together and they're just in this little cave that you swim into. And he's just hanging out like a creep. It's funny to me. But yeah, once again, Cranky goes through his normal rants. And you have to get through it to get to the 2 lines of dialogue that are new.
I kind of wonder if this is a throwback to DKC1, where he just cycles through like the same handful of rants regardless of what world you're in.
That's my headcanon fanon massaging of it, yes. You get the slightly senile old man just saying the same exact shit.
And like, Of course, we know as informed members of the community that that was not the intention in DKC1. There was actually a bug, and he has full contextual rants for every world, and there's like a fan hack to restore that. Um, but it is kind of a neat little like, oh, here's Cranky acting like he does in DKC1.
I've
But
gotten
yeah.
into this. I got into it with Jeff, and yes, I would have liked completely fresh dialogue, but considering they have Cranky, and again, this is just me, my unspoiled ass speculating smugly, but they have Cranky talking out of both sides of his mouth, and
Mhm.
like you're supposed to be thinking, oh, he's talking about this. Oh, but he could also be talking about that. And it would be very
Mhm.
hard to keep that going if you had to write 10 new lines of dialogue for each world. So they keep it simple. I get it. They can't do a full Captain Toad because Captain Toad didn't really say that much interesting.
I would have at least liked a unique line or two per layer just to show that he's lucid and aware of his surroundings.
You have to get through the rants to get to the unique lines, but each layer does give you 2 unique lines where he does his I'm talking about Void Kong, or am I dialogue. He then puts a little flourish on the end of it for a comedic effect, and then he gives you your Bananium gem. But here it's what a rotten crook with such filthy claws. He's out there stealing bananas with those disgusting things. There's a difference between menacing manicures and poor personal hygiene, Heh. I do appreciate how they have broken down the appearance of Void Kong in these vague generalities that could also apply to other characters or another character in particular, and just leave you, the gamer, questioning. I guess Cranky's talking, but maybe not. But and this is the 8th time they do this. I mean, how many times can you find similarities between 2 different character designs and philosophies to keep up the ruse? As many times as Cranky does a rant, apparently. I mean, bravo for keeping to the bit. And the whole bit of Cranky is to have you questioning this. Have you questioning, like, okay, is there gonna be this 11th hour reveal? Are we really building up to this, or am I just this kooky fan too deep in the sauce? And I'm seeing things, but no, they don't use Void Kong's head in Cranky's dialogue. So I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. Am I, like, I have been burned on this so many times in the past 15 years. Are we really doing this again? And, like, I think it's brilliant. I do think it's brilliant. I think the whole conceit of Cranky and what they're doing, I like, bravo. I can't believe they are toying with the fans like this. But holy shit. Really? Like, that's, like, it's a great use of Cranky on one hand, but on the other hand, like, I don't know. Like, I don't have any issues with it other than I wish there could be, in addition to the double entendres, I wish he could have one unique line about the world itself.
Yeah, like, that's what I want. And, like, I'd love to have him talk about, I'd love to be relaxing on the beach like you seem to do. But some of us have work to do.
It would have been nice for him to be a little bit more observant. And he never once acknowledges Pauline or before her detransformation Oddrock. Like, what the hell, Cranky? Like, maybe say, like, what's with the little girl on your shoulders? The little human girl. That's weird, Donkey. Like, he's so up his own ass. This is my time. This is my platform. You're going to hear me speak. I don't care what's happening with you. Oh, you dyed your fur a banana gradient color. I don't care. I'm not going to even acknowledge it. This is my time to speak. I'm done. Leave me alone. That's my rant on Cranky's Lagoon Rants. Thank you. So, Jem, obviously, we can't really get into Pauline at this stage in the game. The game has provided some clues.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on with Pauline or her identity, but it's not a whole lot to go off of yet. And this all is communicated in Pauline's getaway dialogue. Oh my god.
I love these getaway dialogues. They're so great. I didn't really need the extra health from getaways, but I was actively seeking out all of the ones in a given lair just so I could see all of these little hideaway dialogues.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's like Donkey Kong is paired with a 13-year-old girl, and you don't get a lot of aggravation that might spawn from this adult gorilla who maybe has some patience issues getting matched as with a new adventuring partner who is really atypical from his usual adventuring partners. But you do get a hint of that in the getaway dialogue where Donkey Kong's trying to sleep and this hyperactive tween is like, hey, DK, you awake? I want to talk about something, about our surroundings or whatever. And it's very charming, and it does a lot of character development for Pauline if you care to seek it out.
Yeah, it's great. I love these convos.
So in the resort layer, as opposed to getting like clues about Pauline's past, you don't get a whole lot of that, but I do think this is where they really begin to they start to shift her character a little bit. And I'll explain what I mean, but there is a very funny piece of dialogue that I would like you to read. It's one of the pieces of dialogue that just comes from one of the like midpoint getaways in this world. I want you to read Pauline's rants to Donkey Kong.
Yeah, okay. She asked DK if it's awake, and she goes, "It's awful. The worst. Listen up, DK. We've been tricked. This fruit outside looks sweet and tasty, but it's not. I don't know if it's because it's sitting in seawater or what, but I took a bite and it was so salty, I got tears in my eyes. All the other fruit down here has been yummy, just like you'd expect it to be. But I'm telling you, DK, that fruit does not taste like fruit. It tastes like lies." Yeah.
Once we get past
That was amusing. I chuckled at that.
spoiler embargo for our main channels, I will be adding that fruit does not taste like fruit, it tastes like lies to our rotating site slogans. For sure. For sure.
Good stuff.
But yeah, another piece of dialogue that I really liked, and this is when I mentioned that like Pauline begins to have some character development, and by that I mean she seems to really, at this point, she's beginning to enjoy her time in the underground world. So I think it's the last getaway that you can build here, and then you sleep, and then Pauline's like, "Hey DK, you awake?" And she says, "Swimming by the shore, floating in the air, eating huge, yummy fruits. I thought you said it was salty. I love this place. We should stay here forever. Oh, but if we could do this every day, it wouldn't feel special anymore. Well, we'll just have to come back and visit a bunch of times. Right, DK?" And I think this is something that begins to build during this act and eventually reaches a like crescendo. But Pauline is becoming enchanted with the underground world a little bit. And she's also really becoming fond of Donkey Kong and her relationship with DK almost as like a surrogate daughter. And she still wants to get home, but her perspective is starting to shift just a little bit. And she's almost like, I could do this forever. And it's a very subtle shift, but I would say it starts here.
Yeah, good call. I had noticed that shift in later layers, but I hadn't quite pegged it to here.
Yeah. So I think it's definitely being done for a reason, and I do appreciate just how you start to see it. And this is a great world to really begin to build that, because it does really allow Pauline the chance to unwind and enjoy yourself, aside from the trailfinoids,
Yeah.
which, aren't much of a problem. You just punch them and they create the rainbow bridges, and that's fun. So before we move on, I always have to read the Saga of the Explorer
Of
tone
course.
in
Yeah,
each
naturally.
layer. And this is verse 14. So it says, "There is water as far as we can see. It's warm here. The sunlight is strong. It feels nice to dip our feet in the water. We feel saltiness against our stone hide. That sand is damp and clay-like, with vibrant fruits buried in it everywhere. After eating our fill, we slept in the shade of a tree. Before we knew it, our nap had lasted several years. Now that we are well rested, it's time for us to head for the next sinkhole. Onward to the origin of us."
Don't you just hate it when you go down for a nap and wake up and it's been years?
Yeah, a little Rip Van Winkle type situation for the Explorer tone
Yeah.
there. But it also shows like the perspective of the Fractones and how they could potentially just lose themselves and be inert for... I mean, maybe that DKC theory isn't so preposterous because, well, here we have proof that they can just hibernate for an extended period of time.
This note in particular kind of got me questioning how the passage of time down here is measured, because like there's no day and night cycle in this game. And like maybe that's a video game thing where like, oh, nighttime happens, just like not while you're playing, because obviously Pauline and DK sleep. But like, are we supposed to take it that like a full night's worth of time passed every time they like tuck down in a hideaway? Because in that case, like this game takes months of in-game time. And it's just sort of like, what does years actually mean? Are their years the same as our years? How is time measured down here? Also, like, time is measured from the perspective, like, the whole construct of time broken up into hours and days and whatnot is from, like, the perspective of being on the surface of the planet. Does that, like, shift as you get further in and you're, like, traveling less distance to get around the spoke of the wheel sort of thing? Like, how does that work? What's going on? So
yeah, that's a rabbit hole that we could spend going down for years and debating this. I don't know. I don't know how they would measure years when they don't actually observe the sun the planet is orbiting around.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like the only thing I can think of is that maybe they have another way to measure years that are roughly equivalent to the surface, and maybe their years are quite 1-to-1 with ours, but it's close enough that you can fudge it.
True.
But yeah, I do think at the very least, though, this is meant to infer that the Fractones like are functionally immortal. If they can just slumber from their perspective years, and it's no biggie. It's like whatever. It's basically just, oh yeah, my alarm didn't go off this morning. Time seems to be a much more stretched out thing to the Fractone versus Donkey Kong or Pauline. But the big centerpiece of this world, and the thing that you are working towards to advance the story, is you've got to go through the sinkhole to get to the next layer. And the sinkhole is within, or underneath rather, the big watermelon. And it's called
the big watermelon.
Watermelon.
Yep.
So the big watermelon is, well, the only watermelon within this layer, amongst
That's not
all the
true.
other fruit.
There are some tiny, like, I'm not going to say normal sized, some Pauline sized watermelons on the beach where you first land in this layer that you can like kick around.
Yeah, but they're almost like beach balls. Like you kick them and then they pop. Like they do a little bounce.
They don't pop, they shatter. They are hollow. There's no meat in there. So yeah, maybe they're not like actual watermelons, but
As far as terrain goes, because
yeah.
like this does track all the fruit as terrain. So, and for somebody who does want to like max out as many smash stats as possible, I was like super observant of this. And like punching, like there's these little buttons on the top of the fruit that you can punch that completely destroys the fruit. So like if there's a pear, you punch the button, you can bite into the pear and it actually restores your health like the apples do, or you can bite into an orange or strawberry, but you can also just punch the button and it completely just decimates the fruit, and that will count towards your smash stats. So it's very quick that you can max out your stats for strawberries, oranges, pears, and like the only place that actually counts as terrain for the melon is this big watermelon.
Okay. Noted.
The big watermelon, there's a little lore tablet that's called the Big Watermelon Observation Log, and it explains, one day, a seed we planted grew like none other. It seemed for a while that it would never stop growing. It's so big now. Wink, wink. But we do wonder how such a magnificent fruit must taste. Won't someone strong and hungry come and break open the watermelon for us? Just kidding. No one is that strong or that hungry. So the game wants you to skydive into the watermelon, do a dive punch, and just smash into it.
I did feel a little bad about like, are we really like this is the centerpiece of their resort? Are we gonna go smash it up? But then I saw that and I was like, oh, okay, this is the design team going, some people are going to feel bad about that. Let's alleviate their concerns.
Yeah, and I think all the Fractones are just desperate to see it happen. Like, they've been waiting for this moment. So, you've got to use Liftoff Ore to get up there. And like I said, I think speedrunners have cheesed this, but whatever, I don't care. And so, yeah, you get up to, like, almost the highest point, and then one of the Fractones up there is like, well, you've come this far, why not go even farther? And you, like, get up to the, like, little tiny floating islets, and there's some like shifting stone up there, and just like, go all the way, take a dive. So you get up there, and yeah, they're like, dive, dive, dive. They're really egging you on. And so you do it, and you land into this enormous, enormous watermelon. And what I really loved about the smashing stats then is that it immediately maxes out your smashing stats for melon. Like, immediately. You go from 0 to, 100,000?
I don't know if you noticed, but after you smash the giant watermelon, there's now giant chunks of watermelon around the lair.
Yeah. Well, you keep digging, too. And eventually you get to the point where you can destroy it. And this is where I felt bad. Because when you actually completely decimate it, then you get to a new checkpoint, a new tuning fork, and it's labeled Big Watermelon Memorial.
That's the new tourist attraction, the Big Watermelon Memorial.
Yeah, there was a big watermelon here. It's gone now.
Well, like I said, there's now giant chunks of it around the lair.
Yeah. But how long are those going to stay good for? I mean...
Fair enough. Well, as Pauline has pointed out, The fruit's well salted, so maybe it'll keep.
Oh god, it's pickled. Yeah, it's pickled watermelon. Enjoy. Yeah, it almost played darkly humorous. It's like, oh yeah, this magnificent feat of nature that once existed here. Presumably watermelon that was fueled by the bananium root to become this like freak of nature. Well, it's gone now.
Well,
yeah,
there's a bunch of seeds around. Just plant another one.
I suppose. Yeah. It's circle of life and what have you. But yeah, I did enjoy just like, oh god, what have I done? But it's almost like as much as this game tiptoes up to that dark Banjo-Tooie sense of humor, where Banjo and Kazooie do something unconscionable for the Jiggy, and you're like, well, you had to do it, but you feel bad about it. Not quite as much as Conker, per se, but, you know.
Yeah.
Because, you know, at least Banjo and Kazooie, the most they do is inadvertently get 2 ice cubes killed, and, you know, it's kind of debatable how dead they actually are.
Speaking of things that could be fractones.
Well, yes, we saw in the freezer layer there are fractone ice cubes, so, yeah. But, you know, at least Donkey Kong and Pauline haven't murdered a baby dinosaur.
True. Oh man, now I'm thinking about the googly eyes from Ukulele and how those relate to Anyway, no.
All right, calm down. I can beat you halfway for some of this, but yeah. So, befitting the smaller layer, we did not get nearly as many calls for this episode. Thank goodness. So, not that I don't love the calls, but, you know, I feel bad having to exclude people's calls, and I carry that guilt with me for a week. So, we are just playing 2 calls on this episode. Now, you can call the DK Vine hotline at 1-202-630-VINE. That is 8463. And you can leave a message at any time. However, for these Donkey Kong Bonanza episodes, I am limiting them if we get too many. So don't feel bad if we don't play your call. Maybe we'll save it for a future callsack episode. But should we go ahead and play the first call, Jim?
Sure.
Now, this one, they do get into the resort layer, but it's more broadly speaking about Bonanza up until this point. But I thought it was appropriate all the same.
Hello, Hyle and Gibbon. This is TJ calling to give some early thoughts on Donkey Kong Bonanza. So I've been enjoying this game from the very beginning, but I think the moment where the gameplay really started clicking with me was actually some point early on in the forest layer. I remember I was at the top of the Eggshell Hotel, and I was fumbling around, and I fell all the way into the Poison Lake, and I was, of course, you know, semi-panicking, semi-getting frustrated, trying to get out of there, and it was a moment where DK latched onto the wall, and I was like, oh, cool, I forgot he could climb. He could kind of save myself here, and he starts moving up the wall, and I'm like, oh, okay, so yeah, I don't have to panic, I can just get back to a safe spot. And then I kept moving up and up and up the wall, all the way climbing the Eggshell Hotel, up until I made it back to where I originally was. So, like, I scaled that whole hotel from the bottom to the top, and it just kind of occurred to me for a moment where I was like, I guess I had nothing to be worried about. I guess DK's movement in this game, he can scale buildings that well. And, you know about the climbing mechanic from the beginning, but I think that moment where I fell all the way from the bottom of the hotel and had to climb my way back up at the top, that's the moment where it really clicked for me, and I realized I kind of have to think about the movement in this game a little bit differently than I would a Mario or any other kind of 3D platformer. And I think, like I said, I enjoyed it from the beginning, but after taking into account the climbing and DK's moveset and the lifting and the throwing, the double jumping, that's really, really when you start to have the most fun, just finding out what you can get away with and what you can do differently than most other 3D platforms would let you. But, yeah, it's a fantastic game. I'm loving it. I know last week was the forest layer, but I missed that one, so I'm going to talk about it now. The lagoon layer, not the lagoon layer, the resort layer, I'm sorry. The resort layer, I also love it. It's a nice break from all that action that was going on. I like that there's barely any enemies, but yeah, the pacing in this game is so great. I love it. So thank you guys for taking the call.
Well, thank you so much for the call. Yeah, I've said before, and this was an observation I had like early on in my 110 hours, but for whatever reason, the ability for Donkey Kong to climb on most terrain, it just didn't click with me until I actually started playing with the game. Like all the pre-release stuff, for whatever reason, that mechanic and that ability I just didn't realize it was going to be a thing and such a prominent thing in the game. And once I started doing it and getting comfortable with it and, really using it to my advantage, I was like, this is the way 3D Donkey Kong should always be. It feels so natural.
Yeah, as you mentioned in the call, it was TJ, I think.
Yes.
Um, uh, it's not something that comes up in 3D platformers much. Like with Mario, you kind of stick to a wall for a little bit and then start sliding down, and you can like hop off of them or wall kick or whatever you can do in that particular game. And like if you're watching some particularly deft Odyssey player going, they'll like kick flip around and jump off of his own hat and kind of like do some acrobatical magic to get up higher than they were. But DK's just like King Kong. He can just climb up that shit. He doesn't need to do any of that stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I really use it to my advantage here in the resort layer because, yeah, you can just scale the big islands front and back. And, it's also just satisfying to kind of farm for the bananium chips that get wedged in the side there. Like, not even just digging into terrain, just climbing and hand slapping and freeing it. And, yeah, it's just a nice, fun feeling to have that freedom. And it's so, like, simian coded, right? So it does just feel like, oh, this is the missing ingredient. This is what has been missing. Like, obviously, the N64, you probably couldn't do this. And that's not the kind of game Donkey Kong 64 is trying to be. But this is the thing that separates 3D Donkey Kong from Mario, Banjo-Kazooie, all other 3D platformers.
Yeah, it's really interesting how much of this game feels like an evolution of DK64, but it's got a few key elements like being able to climb on anything unless specifically noted,
Right.
that makes it stand apart from DK64 being a more conventional 3D platformer.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this game does a great job of making Donkey Kong 64 feel like part of that lineage, like it's an evolution of some of the ideas DK64 has, but obviously doing its own thing and doing its own thing very, very well. And so, yeah, like I'm just so pleased with how this game feels. And, now I'm so comfortable with it that I, am able to go into a layer and just definitely go from point A to point B, myriad of ways, and I can roll jump as much as I can dig and cling to surfaces.
Oh,
It is just
speaking of, actually, it was in this lair that community member Julius, aka Matt Dog, discovered that you can water bounce like in DKC3 in
yeah,
this game.
yeah.
And you can do it continually. I'm not great at the timing, but once you get it down, you can water skip across the entire length of this layer.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah.
It does.
Also, the zebra can run over water.
Yeah, this is a point where there is, I think, one of the challenges for the Bananium Gem. You want to break out the zebra bonanza to skim across the water. I said like before that the zebra bonanza is probably my least used bonanza because it's so situational. But yeah, it's still nice that you can break it out and experience it every now and then. Donkey Kong controls great in this game, and it finally does justify why you would want a 3D Donkey Kong game over 3D Mario or whatever. It justifies Donkey Kong's place in the market share of 3D platformers. So
yeah, and like because his movement options are what they are. A genre I really like is the immersive sim genre, like Deus Ex or System Shock or whatever, where there's no one right way to go about solving a puzzle. And Nintendo's been kind of getting into that design space this last gen or two, with like Breath of the Wild being very open-ended about how you solve things, and Tears of the Kingdom even more so. But I'd say like this game in particular is the one that has gone all in on the like, yeah, you can solve that puzzle however the heck you want to, because there's obviously like yeah, if you don't want to dig and you don't want to like engage with some of the more off the wall, pun intended, mechanics, here's the entrance to this cave and you can come in and solve this puzzle and get the Bananium gem. Or you could dig through here and find it this way, or you could do this thing and find it this way, or there's actually 4 other ways to solve that puzzle than the conventional quote unquote obvious one. Like there's some things in this game that I only discovered the like quote unquote proper way to do them well in after I'd beaten the game and was just trawling through the levels again and was like, oh, I guess that was how I was supposed to get down here and do that. Huh. Sort of moment. Just very like the game is very accommodating to whatever your playstyle might be, and I think DK's movement tech plays into that a lot, because as you said, speedrunners have found a way to go through this layer without scaling everything or without even grabbing any of the Bifrost bridges and ripping up chunks of them, or doing whatever. There's just a million ways to do everything, even in a layer as quote unquote simple as this one.
Yeah, I don't know much about immersive sims, but I do know a lot about The Sims. And I've played The Sims quite a bit, and so all I'll say to that is I'm relieved that there's no way to forget to build a bathroom for Donkey Kong and Pauline and watch them pee themselves. So,
well, you're not done with the game yet, so
oh shit!
Don't.
Quite literally. Thank you for the call. Let's play our second caller.
Hello, Jem. Hello, Hyle. This is Chronex calling in for the resort layer. I think Vibe Bases might be one of the better layers, especially if it's sort of a cooldown from what we experienced in the Junction. I didn't even realize we were covering the Junction last time because I don't remember all the sublayer numbers exactly. But anyways, I think the 2 main things to talk about here is, number one, this is kind of another vacation destination, right? It seems like this place is really built on tourism, much like the Forest layer before, where it's all based around this hotel. And I think the conclusion is that the underground world must be like very prosperous, right? Like you think it's kind of a rough and tumble world. You're breaking things. Apparently the dress code is no shoes, but you have like 2 layers right next to each other that can serve competing vacation destinations. So this has to be a really kind of advanced interconnected economy. I think also what's funny is that the resort layer kind of goes against Hal's intentions and like desires in playing a game, because this is perhaps the most trivial layer to just like completely skip over. You're supposed to, take these flying islands up to the melon, and that's what I did, but speedrunners can just like basically literally just climb up the giant rock at the center and get directly into the watermelon. I think it takes literally less than a minute to get through the entire thing, which will strike fear into the hearts of DK Vine done slow players everywhere. I want to leave off with a question. I have my own theories, but I'm not going to try to prejudice your answer. What do you think Liftoff Ore tastes like, if it tastes like anything at all? Thank you for taking the call.
Thank you for the call. I will answer your question, but I want to address the speedrunning thing, because like I have no issue with speedrunners. However you want to derive enjoyment out of this game, go for it. I will say though that because I love to luxuriate in the game and take my time, I feel like just skipping over this, it does such a disservice to the storytelling itself. I think, like, I like to see Donkey Kong and Pauline kind of have this breather and kind of reassess and acclimate, and I don't know, like, to just go through it in a minute. I don't want to say I find it distasteful, because again, I'm sure like that is like not how most people first play through this, and it's only until they're, you know, whatever number playthrough after the fact, after they've first beaten the game, they're trying to find ways to break it. But as far as a pure like experience goes, I don't know why you wouldn't want to get the most out of each layer.
Yeah, for sure. Like, there's just so much to soak in any given layer. I don't know. There was a certain amount of urgency to getting through the game because it was like I don't want to be spoiled. Someone's going to say something. Someone is going to spoil it for me. Unfortunately, I was not spoiled, but I also went on my own social media blackout and installed like plugins in my browsers to just block all mentions of this game from everything. So I managed to stay basically completely unspoiled on everything. Up through until I was ready to take all those filters and bans off. But like, I think the most I rushed was like on this layer where it's like, okay, I've got like 95% of the stuff that it's going to let me get at the moment. I'll move on.
Yeah. Like, obviously I'm an odd duck, right? Like, I am the freakish end of the spectrum when it comes to it. But I'm also the kind of person who will like sit through credits at the end of a movie, not for any like end of credits scene, but to pay respect to all the people.
Yeah, it's just the correct thing to do.
Yeah,
everyone who doesn't is wrong.
So like, I'm like, I want to see what this team behind this game have created. I want to appreciate every little detail and just like suck this game dry. And Freezer in our chat, Freezer says it's fun to go fast sometimes. Yes, it is. Well, not for me, but yeah, I could see the appeal if I were wired differently, if I had a different upbringing, if I wasn't so broken in many fundamental ways. Sure, it might be fun. But 110 hours in the game, I'm not even done with it. So, I don't know. I'm having a great time. This is the most fun I've had with a video game in years. So.
Oh, yeah. This is great.
Yeah.
Really great game.
To answer your question, I would say it tastes like Pop Rocks mixed with petroleum.
You know what? I had some Pop Rocks the other day. What a weird sensation.
I haven't had Pop Rocks in probably 25 years? I didn't even know they still made them.
They weren't like brand name Pop Rocks. They were
those generic Pop Rocks that you just find in
I'm trying to remember the context I had them in. Because I have a lot of dietary restrictions, so I can't eat a lot of like brand name candy because they have like gluten fillers or some other thing I can't have in them. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I do end up getting a lot of that, as you say, gas station off-brand stuff that is made from simpler ingredients. But yeah, fun times.
March Rose says, I had one of the Oreos with Pop Rocks in them. I did not like it at all. Now, why would you do that? Like, why would you? I can understand the gimmick and how they would move units with that gimmick. Like, that's the kind of like...
That sounds horrendous.
It sounds horrendous, but I know, like, curiosity, you're like, well, I've got to try that. And then you have one, you're like, this was a mistake.
Do you really?
Mistake. Well, no, but like adventurous sorts who want to experience the wide breadth of what this world offers. You're like, yes, that
I guess.
Tick that off my bucket list, and then you're like, no, actually, I wish I was dead. So many of those gimmick Oreo flavors, I see them in the shop, and most Oreos are vegan, so I can eat them, and I'm like, yeah, I'll try that. Like, ooh,
yeah, they're also gluten-free. I can eat Oreo. Well, they make gluten-free Oreos. Let's put it that way.
The other week, I saw something, I think it was blueberry pie Oreo, and I'm like, I love blueberry pie. Let's go for it. And I bought them, and I brought it home and I ate one and I was like, oh no, because it strips everything that makes the Oreo away, and it tastes like this very like chemically reproduced facsimile of blueberry, and you're like, this is terrible. This is just the worst thing I've had in my mouth in years. Well, Freezer says come with Pop Rocks. I don't know the context for that. Also asks, how does Resort Lair compare to your honeymoon? Well, on my honeymoon, as I've said, I went to a monkey sanctuary. So,
ooh, which one?
It was in the Dominican Republic, so I forget the name.
Oh, wow.
But,
Nice.
Yeah, so, compared to have real-life monkeys crawling all over me to surfing on giant Kong letters with a familiar gorilla, I would say they're about the same.
As someone who has also experienced both of these things, yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah. It's pretty good. I mean, I enjoyed having monkeys crawl on me, but I also enjoy surfing with Donkey Kong. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think I may have mentioned it on a conversation before, but my mother used to work at the Primate Center in North Carolina that Zaboomafoo was filmed at. So, yeah.
Fun.
I have gotten to play with the primates.
My
In
goal.
fact, I got to play with Zaboomafoo's dad.
The big thing on my bucket list, not eating like foul Oreos, but the thing I really want to experience before I clock out is getting hugged by a gorilla.
Oh man.
And I don't know how that would come about. Like, I would have to have some sort of relationship with said gorilla. So the gorilla was like, I want to hug you, my friend. I just want to be friends with a gorilla, really. I think that's the real goal here.
Gotta get into primate research studies or something.
Or I've got to get turned into a rock and be rescued.
Yeah, one of these two
things. One of those things, yeah. It'd be a little bit different if a 40-year-old man was the identity of Otterrock versus a 13-year-old girl. I think that Donkey Kong would be far less interested in me. Like, you can fend for yourself, you freak, you weirdo, get away from me. It's like, but I've run a website about you for 25 years. And then he would really want nothing to do with me.
Yeah, then he'd really, yeah.
So, final thoughts on Resort Lair.
I'm still torn about there being no boss. I'm not sure if I don't know. It's fine without a boss. It doesn't need a boss. The enemies are kind of whatever. I think maybe I would have preferred like either an anti-boss or like maybe, I don't know, have Poppycon standing there and be like, yeah, he's not paying me enough to do anything. Have at it. Or something. Just it's yeah.
I don't know. I like this idea that layers don't have to have bosses. I liked it in Hilltop Lair. I like that.
Yeah, that's fair, I guess. True.
I think that Donkey Kong Bonanza, and this was brought up in the calls as well, it's a very well-paced game. And
it is. It's a very well-paced game.
Like, by that I mean, compared to some other 3D platformers, it doesn't burn the player out. And I think Resort Lair...
That is also very true.
It's the perfect cooldown after you have these two enormous layers and the entire divide, junction, back and forth. Like, I feel like as the beginning of Act 3, it's a nice kind of reacclimatization towards just appreciating the game for what it is and getting to really just spend some downtime with the characters. But at the same time, it introduces an important new terrain type that, you will have to use later on, and it gives you the space to be comfortable getting familiar with it, where there's very little consequences if you get it wrong. And I think that, the thing I appreciate about Bonanza is that it's geared for gamers of all types, really, where you can have a complete deviant like me who spends multiple days in each world, even if it doesn't take them that long to actually play through it. They just want to stay there. And it can cater to us, it can cater to the people who just want to rush through it and get to the big high-octane thrills or the big plot points. But it does it in a way that is not off-putting to either camp. And I think that's really abundant and clear in worlds like Hilltop Layer and Resort Layer.
And I do really appreciate that it doesn't make you feel guilty about taking your time here. Like, there's other games where, like, if you boot up, like, Ocarina of Time, and you get into the second half of the game, and it's like, the world is literally ending, Ganondorf has taken over, he's killing everybody, why are you wasting your time on this side quest gathering up chickens sort of thing? But this one, it's like,
That's not Ocarina of Time. You just turned on the news.
This has been a File 2 production.
Que rico.